A new season starts the same way as old. The Edmonton Elks, they fall to 0-1 on this season as they lose out in BC to the BC Lions 31-14. Welcome to the Green and Gold Postgame Show live right here on Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton Sport, presented by Play Alberta. Iwanyk and Jay Milne with you here as we just watch along with you the end of the Elks, or the whole Elks game against the BC Lions. Your thoughts always going to be welcome. 780-218-9999, or you can jump into the nasty chat. Some comments already coming in, which we'll get to very shortly here. But first, Jay, I'll start with you. Well, actually, I should just say thank you to everyone for listening on TuneIn, iHeartEdmontonSportsTalk.com, Apple Music, listening or watching on YouTube, or listening to this via podcast. Please hit that, smash that thumbs up button. Jay, your thoughts,
Matthew,
on this game?
Just not good enough. Very. Look, I'm going to say this. And the Elks defense at times looked great. At times they looked questionable. But I just felt like the offense never got it going entirely at the same time.
There was zero flow from start to finish from the offense.
Absolutely. They did not commit to the run game. They gave up on the run game. They had 10 rushes between their two running backs in Justin Rankin and Javon Leake. That's not good enough. That's simply not good enough. Aside from the spectacular, Trey Ford looked below average. Aside from the crazy, I'm going to run it back 30 yards from the line of scrimmage and complete a pass to Justin Rankin, or, you know, the scramble plays, which you expect of Trey Ford. But here's the thing, you can't rely on that.
No, but you also have to rely on an offensive line that could protect you better.
Yeah, I will say there was some confusion on the O-line at times tonight. I mean, they gave up, 2 sacks?
If there was any other quarterback, there's a lot more sacks being given up.
Yeah,
tonight.
Absolutely.
Right? Like
100%.
so that's just overall on the offense, there's a lot of blame to go around on that offense. And I'll even go right to the OC and Jordan McSimic to start. Not a good enough offense in that one.
It didn't look like they over 30 yards, they had 2 plays. And both of them were on broken plays where Trey Ford had to use his legs. They were not pushing the ball downfield. No. They weren't challenging the defense. It looked like when BC would blitz them, they weren't prepared for it. Which on the flip side, as we'll get into, when the Double E blitzed BC, that was a different story. But just a discombobulated effort on offense. I didn't mind what I saw from the defense, but as we were talking throughout the game, the story of the game and what, ultimately shut this team down was the lack of getting off the field in second down situations.
Yeah, I wrote down 4 things for this game to look at for this, why the Edmonton Elks lost. The first thing I have is second down defense, which I'm very fascinating to wait for the CFL post-game stats because I want the breakdown. They break it down nicely by yardage. But the BC Lions converted at a 70% rate today on second downs. Now, third down, the Elks, you want to get into third down territory. The Elks defense showed up to play today. But second downs, they were allowing conversions on 70%. And it wasn't even like most of the time it was 2nd and 1, 2nd and 2, 2nd and 3. They were 2nd and 5 or worse for the BC Lions, and they were converting at ease with that one. The second they had was offense, no flow. There was just zero flow the entire way. Trey didn't look good enough. The O-line wasn't good enough. They didn't get Rankin and Leake involved enough. When they were involved to start the game, they didn't get anything really going. Receiving-wise, I said to you while we were watching, I would love a coaching cam because I'd like to know what Gittins Jr. and Julian Grant were doing today. I don't know if they were getting open. I don't know if they just weren't doing anything out there. To your Zach Mathis being the most targeted wide receiver is not exactly a good thing.
Cannot be your most targeted receiver.
Zach Mathis had a very rough first half. 2 penalties, 2 drop balls, which doesn't go well for a flow of an offense when you have a guy dropping the balls either. Second half, he was confused on one play entirely. He didn't know what play was being called. The third thing I have is kicking.
No.
7 points off the board because of Vincent Blanchard missing 2 field goals and an extra point. One of those field goals down the middle, the extra point obviously down the middle, everything to the left. So 7 points off the board. And then the fourth thing I had is penalties. Penalties there, a punt return touchdown taken off, or is that kick return? That was a kick return touchdown taken off the board because of a penalty that I don't really think would have impacted that play. But you take a penalty, and the Edmonton Elks today, overall
6 penalties, 30 yards.
30 yards, which isn't a lot.
But it was timely.
Exactly.
It was timely
that
penalties.
Was the key thing. Those are the 4 points that I had going into this post-game show of what were the issues there.
Well, and, I just want to talk about Trey Ford a bit more.
Go for it.
I don't know if this is a play calling thing or if this is a Trey Ford issue, but I was very unimpressed with Zach Mathis tonight. 8 targets, 4 receptions, 2 went right off his hands. He looked disorganized at the end of the game. He did not know what the hell he was doing on the field at the end of the game.
Which actually could come down to a concussion thing because he was, I don't know, he was pulled for concussion before that, if I'm not mistaken, at the very end. Or was that after? I can't remember.
Curly Gittins Jr., Stephen Dunbar Jr., those should be the guys that are receiving the majority of the targets. Curly Gittins Jr. was targeted twice. Kion Julian Grant, targeted twice. Stephen Dunbar, targeted 4 times. Zach Mathis, targeted 8. Matt, I hope that, 2 things maybe can change. That this was a one-off, or that Zach Mathis can be better, run better routes. His routes were sloppy. The receptions that he did get were not game changers. And I just know, and Trey Ford's spoken about it. Trey Ford's spoken about his connection and his off-field relationship with Zach Mathis. I just hope that has not clouded anybody's vision here in this offense, because that should not be the guy. That should be the guy stretching the field. That should not be the guy catching passes across the middle. I did not like the ball, the passing selection at all. And then you have a really questionable throw by Trey Ford.
Yeah.
On that interception, which essentially sealed the game.
Sure.
I don't, it's just a bad interception. Now that's going to happen, Matt.
Well, that's one thing I want to say.
Will happen.
Trey Ford, there are going to be growing pains with Trey Ford as a starting quarterback.
Well, as we're looking at the highlights here, you're seeing the spectacular side of Trey Ford.
But that's going to come, and that interception was a terrible decision. And even, I know Glenn Suter on the broadcast was trying to say that maybe the receiver ran the wrong route. Well, twice in that game, a receiver ran the wrong route, and they almost got interception. Once it did, and earlier in the game it didn't. Zach Mathis, I think it was, ran the wrong route, or it seems to be. But you can't make that throw then in that moment. But Trey Ford is not going to play a football game. Trey Ford, no one was ever going to say to start this season he was going to be Nathan Rourke. Nathan Rourke looks back to being 2022 Nathan Rourke, which is by far the best player in the Canadian Football League. It's not even close. He didn't look like that last year. He's looking like it again this year. Like this is scary from a BC Lions offensive perspective. For defenses going up against this Lions offense, this is scary. What they saw tonight from Nathan Rourke, because this guy, he doesn't just have an arm; he also has a leg. We saw Nathan Rourke move very well with his feet. But Trey Ford is going to have his struggles. But the part that I go with on this is, again, when it comes to the receiver, I would love a Coach 22 cam, or the All 22 cam it's called, or I guess in the CFL it'll be an All 24, because I'd like to know what the receiver routes were running. Because are they getting open or not? Or is he just focusing in on Zach Mathis? If he's just focusing on Zach Mathis, yes, I'm concerned about that. But if the other receivers aren't getting open, then that's on them too. The other part to this is that there's a lot of time he was pressured tonight. The O-line was not good enough.
Right.
The O-line, Evans the second, he struggled
Yeah.
On that right side with the Boyko going down. McKellar struggled next to him. That right side of the offensive line had its struggles tonight.
Absolutely.
And right off the bat, for Trey Ford, it was he didn't have time to go through his progressions. So that's where also then don't know what type of Jordan Maximic offense is. Is that the progression where he starts with Zach Mathis or whatever it is?
Yeah.
So there's a lot. There's a lot to me to be concerned about with the offense to a degree going into the rest of this season. But I also sit there and go, okay, but there are spots where I know that they can improve. It's like the O-line, I don't think is going to be this again, especially when Boyko comes back.
Yeah, maybe we underestimated just how much of a difference it would make not having him in, knowing that Mark Evans II had taken reps on first-team offense all week. But you're missing, obviously, a key guy on your front five. So that was... Yeah, I was actually surprised by that. I expected more out of this offensive line out of the gate. David Beard looked a little, you saw quite a few of those shotgun snaps.
Just too high?
Too high. But I mean, that's stuff they can fix. And Matt, honestly, when you're looking at the penalties, 6 penalties for 30 yards in the grand scheme of things, it's really not, that's not a lot.
No.
The issue was the one that was taken on the Javon Leake touchdown return, which happened the first game of last year, by the way, as well. Javon Leake returned a touchdown.
That's right, because you called that.
Yeah, and it was called back on a penalty. So he's probably pretty sick of that. First downs, Matt. BC had 25, Edmonton 16.
17.
That's the difference. That, to me, and second down conversions. I mean, you look at the opening third quarter touchdown drive for BC. They converted on second down and 11, second down and 9, second down and 5 on a 106-yard touchdown drive. I mean, that started at their 3-yard.
Yeah, the BC Lions to start the second half, they started on their own 38, 7 plays, 72 yards for a touchdown. They started on their own 3, 10 plays, 102 yards for a touchdown. And then they started on their own 24, 7 yards, 86 yards, and a touchdown. And then after the Trey Ford touchdown, they had 1 play for a touchdown. That's not an offensive drive. That's just an easy touchdown. 3 drives where they drove for 7, 10, and 7 plays and just marched down the field at will. And I shouldn't even say at will. First down, the Elks defense showed up. The Elks defense, more often than not, forced the BC Lions into a second 5 or worse. And including a 7, 8, 9, seconds and 9, seconds and 10s. And they just still got beat on that second down. And the difference was that first half, that first drive, they allowed a long drive. They bent as much as you could bend without breaking because they got the third down stop right at the goal line.
Yeah.
But then as the whole first half continued, they were more aggressive. They were more physical. They were making plays. They held this BC Lions team to 3 points in that first half. It was looking great. And then it just fell apart in the second half in terms of getting that stop. Like
they couldn't get off the field.
They couldn't get off the field. They couldn't even just force a field goal.
Yeah.
Like imagine if in the second drive where they're on the BC starts on their 3 and they drive 10 plays for 102 yards for a touchdown. Imagine if they just held to a field goal there. How different of a ball game that is. But I also think that's something that they could get better at. Like part of what happened there was Nathan Rourke is just a great quarterback.
Well, and maybe we're not giving that enough respect right now because Nathan Rourke had himself quite the night. I mean, he was 27 to 36 for 324 yards, 3 touchdowns. I mean that's. He had double the attempts as Trey had in completions. I don't think we're giving Nathan Rourke enough credit here as well to that defense. But at the same time, what I said off the top is still true. It looked like BC, their offense, their scheme on offense was prepared for an Edmonton when they would bring the blitz.
Yeah.
Nathan Rourke was dialed in. I mean, Emmanuel Rugamba had a pretty rough night in one-on-one coverage. There was 2 touchdowns that came at his expense. I get it. You're in one-on-one. You're expecting a quick throw because your defense is supposed to get home. but just not a great look on second down specifically. I didn't mind how in the first half, like you said, it was a different story for that defense.
Yeah.
They were flying around, making plays, but they just couldn't get off the field. And, you have a 10-play drive, then a 7-play drive from BC. It's just that takes the win right out of you, literally as well, for that defense.
If that defense plays the way they did today against a lot of other quarterbacks or offenses in this league, they're getting the results. They're getting off the field. I do believe that. I think this is one where part of what we have to do, they need to be better. But we also have to remember, okay, I'll start on defense on this. There's 8 guys new to this defense. Now, at the same time, we've talked about the D-line. They know each other. But there's a lot of new guys to this defense. The secondary, there's one new guy or one returning player. There's only 2 new returning players in the linebacking core. There is going to take some time for growing pains here. I'll stand by this. I always had this on my schedule of I have the Elks possibly going 0-3 to start this season.
Yep.
This isn't something that I think is derailing the season or anything. It takes time to come together. This is a team that we didn't talk about it on the kickoff show, but they have the least amount of experience in the Canadian Football League. And in terms of games played, the Elks team is the least experienced that have crossed the Canadian Football League. So there is going to be some growth that is going to be necessary and a leeway given to them. I am expecting this defense to learn from this and grow from this. But I also think if they play this style or this game against most other teams, they're coming away with the victory. Now, offensively, what doesn't help is, Trey wasn't strong enough. What doesn't help is the O-line wasn't good enough. What doesn't help is Zach Mathis couldn't catch the football. What also doesn't help, though, is that they were in field goal position twice and walked away with 0 points. And that was a concern that I had coming into this season when you go with a kicker that you're not confident in that how much does that just deflate your team? That you get in a position to get some points and you end up walking away with 0 because then you have to sit there and go, okay, what is it going to take to get points? What is it going to take to not, is it 3 or is it every drive has to be a touchdown? And that has to be a concern for Ed Hervey right now going into this bye week is he wants to give Vincent Blanchard a chance. He wants to give him some leeway. But how long is that runway going to be when he took 7 points off the board for you tonight? And what difference could have that made had he made an extra point and 1 field goal? What type of different game is this? What type of different level of confidence is there for both the offense and the defense? That is something that I'm sure Ed is asking himself that if he didn't already know what the answer was going to be going into this game. But that, if Blanchard is the kicker on June 19th when the Edmonton Elks are taking on the Montreal Alouettes, he has to be significantly better. Otherwise, he probably won't be around when the Elks go to Winnipeg to take on the Blue Bombers the week after.
I would imagine that he's working the phones already, Matthew. I think there'll probably be another kicker here, hopefully next week. And now you have a bye week to try and correct this as well. It's just not, the yips, first game jitters, I don't know, but I don't really care. I'm sorry. This is a professional sport. You're supposed to be a professional. Now, did he have the leg? Yeah. He's got a rocket for a leg. And they were all missing left. So I don't know, maybe he's just got to aim a little bit to the right.
Just wherever you're looking, look 2 inches more to the right and see what happens.
I do think, though, and to just talk about this defense, because when an offense is playing well, a defense starts to play well as also. So you look at the second down conversions for Edmonton. You said how the Elks defense couldn't get off the field. Well, the Elks offense was getting off the field. Yep. They were 8 for 19 on second down conversions. That's 42%. That's just not good enough. You're pushing your defense to get back on the field faster than they should. You're not extending drives. BC had 4 drives of over 6 plays. Edmonton had 2 or 1, and it resulted in a touchdown. So extending drives, allowing your defense to get a breath, it goes hand in hand. Both things usually fall apart at the same rate. But yeah, it's just, look, this was a stinker of a game. This was just, it wasn't great for Edmonton. You could look at every position and say, yeah, wasn't good enough. So my question to you then is this just because there's so many new faces here and they haven't quite, gotten it together yet? Or is this is just a team that Elks fans have to suffer through again this year?
I wouldn't go close to anything close to that myself. I actually walk away from this. I've covered quite a few season opening losses for the Edmonton Elks.
Sure.
I covered one where they went to BC a few years ago and got destroyed. At halftime, myself and Jeff Walker were playing Tetris on our video machine at the old place because it was like, this is what we're starting with. I think there's a few things to look at here. One is, this isn't just new faces. There's a new coach. There's a new offensive coordinator. There's a new system. It's new in so many different ways, and there is going to take some time to get together, to get things going and rolling the way you want to. Whereas at least the BC Lions, while there's a new coach and a new system there, Nathan Rourke knows some of his receivers. That old line that they had in BC, I think they had quite a bit of returning players. James Butler's returning to a team players that he knows. Like Nathan Rourke does know James Butler next to him. There are some more returning faces there. We look at the old line here in Edmonton. Even if you want to go to Mark Gordy, he's not playing in the position that he was last year. So he's having to get used to being in a different spot. As much as he was doing it throughout training camp, it's different doing live bullets. It's different doing it in a live game. Even for Trey, like, having to just get back to playing regular season football, this is a little different. And there are going to be growing pains with Trey. I want to say that because, I'll say this. I'm not... Dusty's in the nasty chat. He had this one earlier. If that's the Trey we see this year, it won't be 8 wins. He needs to be better. Line as well, but how many good throws did he make? I will say this with that, though. And look, this is a city that got ripped. Dusty was mad at the city for ripping on Stuart Skinner. This is his first career start as the guy of the Edmonton Elks, where this is his anointed team. We have to, if we see with the same Nathan Rourke we saw today, the BC Lions aren't going to lose a football game. They're going to go 18-0. That's not what we're going to fully see here. I think there has to be an acceptance. There is a development still to come here from Trey Ford. That and you have to see that week in and week out. But I've seen some other people saying Trey's done already. Like that's just wrong to me. There's some signs here of good things to come. But did Jordan Maximic call a great game yet? Have we seen the full playbook from Jordan Maximic as of yet? I don't think so. The defense, there's a lot of positives from the defense to pull off of. Punting and the return to the coverage team, it's good. I don't look at this game and am worried about my prediction of this team to go win 10 games. I still very, very, very good about it. I'm worried about Montreal because they're a good football team. I'm worried about going to Winnipeg because Edmonton never wins in Winnipeg. But this team, the offense needs to be better, and I expect the offensive line to be better, and I expect Trey Ford to be better. They're beating Ottawa. They're beating Hamilton. They're finding victories. They could go beat the Toronto Argonauts. Are you thinking this is the team that we're getting?
No, I'm not. I wanted to see what you thought, but I got an idea of what you thought. I just, there was a lot of things that just weren't great. They weren't even acceptable in tonight's game. So I'll tell you this, Matt. If you want to, look at some of the potential positives coming out of this, one of the biggest positives for me is that this team's on a bye week next week. This team can look at themselves, look at this game, because for all we know, BC might be the best team in the West. I don't know. We don't know. Nathan Rourke sure looked like a polished quarterback that's been doing this with this team for a lot longer than just this training camp or the last however many games of last year. He looked really good. So I think for Edmonton, this is now time to get it together. Obviously, training camp wasn't enough time. They're going to get Boyko back. That losing Brett Boyko is I think a bigger deal than maybe one would expect or at least acknowledge on the O-line. So they're going to have him back. Yeah. Well, that, like you said, the whole right side struggled.
Yeah. McKellar struggled next to him. Maybe is that a thing where he's used to Boyko because that's what he had through training camp here? But that right side struggled. And I don't know. RPK in the nasty chat. How are you guys not ripping the O-line? Do you not know their names? We have talked about the O-line.
I think we just said they were bad.
Well, and we said that at the start. Like, the O-line isn't good enough. It wasn't good enough today, and that led to a lot of the problems with today of the Edmonton Elks. But so did Trey Ford's play. So did the play calling. You know, there was a lot that just didn't go to a smooth offense, and that's why the Edmonton Elks did struggle. But there are some things that they can work off of and grow in. So I don't know where I put an order of blame in this game in today. I'm with you. I think number one would be the lack of flow with an offense, the lack of a drive. Like, they couldn't just sustain a quality drive. But then I would go to the defense there. But I do think these are all things that Mark Kilam, JC Sherritt, Jordan McSimic, and the team can work on and improve on. That's what I see tonight, is that there is room for improvement, and that by the time we get into July, where this team could maybe win a football game since, for the first time since July of 2022, there's ways to do that. I do got second down stats, by the way.
How bad is it?
Well, I'll start with the Elks. You talked about the 42%. I found this interesting. The Elks were either 2nd and 3 or less, or they were 2nd 7 and long. They did not have a 2nd and 4, 5, or 6 today. So either they got right to that first down marker and they converted at 80%, or they were long and they only converted at 29%. The BC Lions today converted on second down 70% of the time. Between 4 and 6 yards. So second, 4, 5, or 6. 100%. They were 4 for 4. 7 plus. 62%. 8 of 13. 62% is probably just a good conversion of second down in general.
That's phenomenal.
62% on second and longs.
Yeah,
that just can't happen. And that in the end is why, like, you part of this, you could talk about the offense, but when the defense comes out and lets touchdown to start, you're not going to win football games that way either. The offense of the Edmonton Elks could have matched the BC Lions offense, but in the end, they would have lost that football game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's the biggest thing, is just not getting off the field, and your offense not staying on the field, right? I mean, 41% conversion rate on second downs is not going to cut it. And you're just handing the ball back to BC, and then your defense is not getting off the field. That's not a recipe for success. And this, I don't know how much more we can rip on the O-line without realizing that we are critical of the offensive line. But I'll tell you one thing, RPK, that O-line didn't throw that interception right to Ben Hladik. Did they, Matt? Was that an O-line?
They did not.
That
and
threw that?
That was also not one that you could put on the O-line for lack of protection.
No.
It was a terrible throw. / what Glenn Suter said, maybe possibly also a terrible route run.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I think that hey, by the way, that was the only time I really saw them in that, all second half, try push the ball downfield. How many times tonight do we see them try passing outside? Right? To the flats, or, a 5-yard out, or a hook, whereas BC was moving the ball downfield. And albeit a lot of that was based off of the Elks blitz packaging. They blitzed quite a bit, which I'm okay with, but you got to be able to either get home, or B, back off and cover down. In cover 0, that's where, 2 touchdowns came solely off of that.
Tango thinks it was a bad route run. He's going of that way. But making excuses for Ford. He wanted to be the man. He got his bag. Now be the man. Well, actually, if you're going based off that, he doesn't actually fully get the bag until year 3 of his contract. But no, like he is. The thing is, he wants to be the man, and yeah, he needs to be better. But there's also still a growth that needs to come out of this. And to just expect him to be Nathan Rourke in game 1 of the first season that he's the anointed starter, that is too high of expectations. That is just, you're setting yourself up for failure of what you're expecting from Trey Ford right off the bat. Like that's just not going to happen. When you have a bad O-line, guess what you throw? 5-yard flats and hooks. There was no time. But they didn't even throw that. Like I could give they didn't throw deep balls tonight. But that comes down to partly that the O-line wasn't given the time for it. But they could have easily dropped it off to Javon Leake or Justin Rankin more. Like, that's the one thing I will always go to. Is it, even if you're not handing the ball off to your running backs, I still want 15 to 20 touches.
Well, you need to do that to have a balanced offense.
But you could do that with the passing.
Yeah.
Where you're dumping it off to them. Like,
then that opens up play action passing as well.
Well, okay. We saw a lot. We saw Nathan Rourke early beat the Elks a lot with play action
They
passing.
were using it quite effectively. Yeah.
I don't think we saw that from the Elks today.
We didn't. I don't remember seeing. No, we did not have a screen. I do not recall seeing play action. I mean, BC and Buck Pierce running that offense, they like the play action, and it cost them, or it cost the Elks defense quite a few times. How many times did you see a linebacker coming in on a blitz blow up a running back who didn't have the ball? Right? I can think of 3 separate incidences where you're thinking, oh, wow, that's a big, oh, no, Nathan Rourke still has the ball. Oh, it's completed for another first down. Right? So there's a lot of things to tighten up, Matt. But I mean, first game, it's hard to draw comparisons here. It's hard to say, oh, this team is this, or this team is not doing this right, when you only have one team that you've played in the BC Lions. But there's a lot to clean up. Like I said, I think this is a great time for them to have their bye week, which is odd to say coming out of week 1.
Which, by the way, Wednesday we're supposed to have Royce Metier on the hangout.
Right on.
Another Elk. So we'll talk to him. Wait, we got a text mad at me. I think it would be me. I don't know if you've seen this one. Way to go. Ruined my day. This is a first-time texter. Ruined my day by putting the result in your title, which comes up when I search for highlights since I couldn't watch. Well, if you're going on YouTube searching for highlights, there's always going to be a risk that you're going to run into results. Sorry, spoilers. That's just, sorry. If you're going on YouTube not wanting to get spoilers and you entered the game that you are looking for not wanting to get spoilers, you're running the risk of getting spoilers. Just plain and simple. And my title just says the Elks fall to the Lions. I didn't even put the score in there. So, yeah, I'm not sorry about that one.
Well, this is the post-game show.
I know, and it's on YouTube, which there's a lot of different things. Like, I'm sorry. You can't go to YouTube and not expect to have some sort of spoilers potentially when you type in Elks Lions after their game.
Yeah, no. Don't take that personally, Matt. That's sorry, you're just doing your job.
Tango does say this is my first Green and Gold post-game show, and I'm telling you, Jay knows his stuff. So I just want to throw that one.
Yeah, maybe not. I mean, this was a team I was saying that. Well, I really don't know, Matt. And that's what sucks about analyzing a game after the first game of a season. Was I impressed with this guru at offensive coordinator and Jordan Maximic? No, not at all. In fact, I was kind of deflated. That was not exciting. That was not dynamic. It was very, very stale. And what was my key to the game? Run the ball. Well, I get it. It wasn't working at the start of the game. That does not mean you go away from it. In fact, if your O-line's struggling in pass protection, run the ball even harder, because that's easier to block for those guys. If they're struggling, trying to, coverage or breakdown in their sets, BC's blitzing them, run the ball. You can man up and zone block, man block, whatever, but you have a job at that point. They just didn't stick to it. I thought it was frustrating. And then I think it was early in the second half, Justin Rankin, they ran a misdirection play where they had, I think, Curly Gittins Jr. come through, and then they handed the ball to Justin Rankin up the gut. He had his longest rush of the game, 12 yards. One simple misdirection. But they totally went away from the run.
And that's one thing where I wonder if, I kind of brought it up in the kickoff show, how long until we're going to start seeing, or maybe it's Hangout yesterday, until we're going to start seeing Jordan McSimmon's offense come out. And if I had him today, I'm going to think he's starting very small and he's going to slowly open up the playbook as the weeks go on.
Well,
because this isn't anything that we saw out in BC. This isn't anything that we've seen from Jordan McSimmick as an offensive coordinator. This is way too basic, way too bland. And it's like he was wanting first to see the team, get to stages. Okay, now we could do these plays. Now we could do these plays. And he doesn't want to come out and overwhelm his offense too soon.
There's nothing overwhelming about a simple run set. There's nothing overwhelming about a screenplay. There's nothing overwhelming about a counter. I mean, there was zero the one time I saw misdirection in the backfield, it went for a 12-yard run. The longest run of the game by anybody other than Trey Ford. That's simplifying. If you really want to look at it and say, okay, maybe what he had put into the system or installed in that offense was too much. Maybe there was too much. Whereas they should or could just simplify, especially in the run game. But yeah, it was just a weird flow. It never seemed like the offense was comfortable or marching the ball, right? Look what BC did. BC would just march the ball down the field. They were never afraid or in doubt of the drive ending for what, 3 drives in a row?
And this also could be just, they're coming off preseason, not a lot of reps for the Edmonton Elks.
Yeah, but you can say the same for BC.
Well, the one thing I could say is, though, Nathan Rourke played in, I think, both preseason games. I think I'd have to go double check first preseason game. Preseason game week 1, did Nathan Rourke play? Nathan Rourke played in the first preseason game. Not a lot. He got a little bit of action. He played in the second preseason game.
Yep.
That sometimes maybe it just takes that little bit to shake that rust off. And this is a case of this offense. It wasn't good. But now give them a little week off, give them some film, and now get ready for Montreal, who after next week, are they coming in on a short week, or what kind of type of week? Because BC gets a short week next week, but then the week after Montreal plays on Friday, so they get a decent time off because it'll be Thursday, June 19th, when the two teams come to Edmonton to play for the Elks' second game of the season. It's one of those, maybe it's just even the progression of getting into the season. Like I'll use a hockey reference. I remember Ken Hitchcock once said this, where it's not until mid to late October when teams are starting to fully get going. That once the season starts, it takes a few weeks to finally get their legs under them and get going. Maybe this is what we have to expect for this Elks team overall, is that they just got to shake off that rust, and it's going to take them a little bit to get going because of just so much new that they're also dealing with.
It could be, but I mean, everybody's training camps are the same length. Everybody has new players on their team.
But this is also the least experienced team.
You're absolutely correct.
League. So those other teams have better experience of knowing how to shake off that rust quicker, where this team does not.
And maybe that's, you brought that up earlier on in the day that this team is the youngest team in the CFL. As far as veterans on the team?
Yeah, games played ranked they're 9th.
Right.
The average game played, career is 34.1. The BC Lions were 4th going into this. Average games played 41.7, so half a season more on average. But more veterans. So maybe that's just part of that.
I mean, but here's the thing, Matt. If you look at the first quarter, Trey was 1 of 5 passing for 6 yards. They had rushed the ball twice for -1 yards. Nathan Rourke was 9 of 10 for 100 yards in the first quarter. They had rushed the ball 4 times for 36. BC dominated that first quarter, but the Elks were ahead. Right? Halftime. Trey Ford 7 of 11 for 82 yards. He's improving. Plus 27 rush yards. Rankin, 5 rushes for 15 yards. So they were improving. And then it was like the wheels fell off in the third quarter because BC had 2 monster drives. A drive of 10 plays, a drive of 7 plays, both that resulted, I just broke my pen. Both that resulted in touchdowns. I mean, that's where this game fell apart. Was 2 long drives that just killed that defense. And then you give it, then Edmonton takes the ball 2-0. Defense is back on the field. Right? So it's kind of and often this is the case where it's a mixture of a lot of bad things happening at the same time. BC, the Elks defense couldn't get off the field, and their offense couldn't stay on the field.
Well, and you got to throw in the missed points.
It's 24-14.
Well, it's got the missed points. Because like this is the drive summary of the start of the third quarter, the second half. BC comes out and drives for a touchdown. Great return by Arkell Smith.
Great.
Elks get a 2-and-out. Javon Leake gets the ball. It's a handoff to Javon Leake. He gets nowhere. And then on the next play, Trey gets sacked for a loss of 6. So the O-line doesn't do its job.
Yep.
They settle for a field goal, but it's missed. So now instead of it being, because at the time, that would have made it 10-7. So that would have been a tied football game.
Yep.
But it's not. You're down by 3. Then what does BC do? They drive it down the field for another touchdown. There's your big turning point right there.
Yeah.
Instead of the BC Lions and the Edmonton Elks being tied at 10 apiece, the BC Lions are able to go march down the field and go up by 10 points. And after that, the Elks offense, now thanks to a broken play, but the Elks offense marched down the field in probably one of their best drives of the game. 6 plays, 58 yards, and they got a touchdown. They brought it back to within 3.
But that's not sustainable. Like that.
But then the defense gives up another touchdown.
Yeah.
That's the part that I'll go here. Like, we could talk about the offense not getting off the field, but at the one point that they did and they got it close again, what did the defense do? Immediate 7-play, 86-yard drive for a touchdown. And it became a 10-point game again. And then Trey threw his bad pick.
Yep. Yeah, it was just errors that added up at the same time. It started with a missed field goal off of, and by the way, Arkell Smith, huge night. 64-yard return, 34-yard return, put them in great position, took a massive hit late in the game, so hopefully everything's okay there. I still don't understand how Glenn Suter was arguing that was not a penalty. I mean, he hit him.
Both helmets came off.
Yeah, both helmets came off, and you're saying that he hit him with his shoulder. I don't know. Maybe I'll have to ask him that. We'll be on our show, I'm sure, one of these days.
You should get him. He's actually great to have on.
Oh no, he's
we used to have him on with JMO, and we'd have him on once a week, and we'd just go through all the games. It was great.
Yeah, but he puts you in great field position, and even you said you're like, at least they'll get a field goal out of this. And
field goal attempt. We changed that to field goal attempt at some point.
And remember they were saying, Rod Smith said, and this is a massive point after attempt. And it's like, you shouldn't have to say that. You shouldn't have to acknowledge that this is a massive point after.
But it was.
Try. I mean, I don't know. Is this team cursed with kickers?
I'll say this right now. Cass has this on for Oilers and stuff. It was compounding errors. That's what the Elks had.
There you go.
It was compounding errors. It went from. I'm not even saying I don't mind the first opening drive touchdown that you give up with the Elks defense. Look, again, Nathan Rourke and the BC Lions are going to score points on an offense. I don't mind that they drove down the field and scored a touchdown. It starts with the missed field goal. Then it goes to a big drive given up. And then that's where and then the intercept. Like, that's where the compounding errors come from.
Yeah.
Starts with the missed field goal. And that was one of the concerns I had just going into this is how much does that possibly deflate?
Well, it's just deflating.
That's the thing.
It's so deflating to a team to get into, it's a score. I know it's not a touchdown or 6 points, but it's a score.
You get to walk off the field and say we're closer, or we got some, or we took the lead, or whatever.
Yay.
Got some points.
Instead, it's like,
what do we have to do?
Here we go again. Because this team is not foreign to missing field goals or missing extra points. It's just, I just don't understand how they cannot find a kicker. And I would expect, honestly, to see another kicker here prior to their next game.
I don't, just because of what Ed said this week on the morning show, where it sounds like they want to give him a chance.
Yeah, well, you know what helps with that is a little bit of pressure too.
Sure.
Bringing somebody in to push Blanchard, because it's just not, that's not good enough.
You can't have a season where you can't rely on your kicker in any way, shape, or form.
Well,
and I'm sorry, there's got to be a kicker out there. And I know some people will go with Dean Faithful. Sure. There's the UFL season is over, coming to a close. I have no idea what they're in. But there's got to be some kicker you can grab there. There's got to be some kicker that was in the NCAA that's now done that you can bring. There's got to be someone out there that you can go bring in that could do better than that. But I think we'll see him get one more crack at it. One more kick at the can, if you will. Pun intended.
I don't know. I wouldn't have, my lease would be much shorter, especially, Matt, you have one freaking job.
I know.
You don't do anything at practice but practice kicks. That's it.
But the problem is, I'll defend a kicker for a second here.
Don't.
I'm going to.
Don't. Honestly.
You can make all your kicks in practice, but it's never going to be the same as a game situation with the pressure and the scoreboard going. You're never going to replicate that. That the only way you're going to get that experience to a degree is during a game. And that's what, I'm not at practices. Hangout happens. I can't get down. He might have went perfect this week. And if he's perfect during practice, you need to evaluate this a little bit. You have to give him the shot in the kick in real game situation. But then there's also a question of what is the cap situation for the Edmonton Elks? Are you relying on it if you're making a change, going to get a complete young rookie? Or can you go find some sort of experienced kicker? Do you have that little extra cash to go in and experienced kicker if you need to?
What about a blockbuster kicker trade? Renee Paradis.
After the win Calgary had today, I don't think they're giving up their kicker at this moment.
Phyllis says, give him one more game in a different place, and if he can't kick there, then turf him. Tango, as a Bombers fan, we always had mediocre kickers for years.
That was always going to be a concern. Well, there was the one Grey Cup, the first one against Toronto, where there was concern, and it was the kicker. And there was a few times in this Grey Cup run that the Bombers have had of getting to 5 straight Grey Cups, where you wondered, going into those games, is it going to be the kicker that is going to cost the Winnipeg Blue Bombers a Grey Cup? And now we're having that similar conversation here in Edmonton, but it's not about Grey Cups. We're talking about just victories. Is it going to be a kicker that is stopping those?
I don't know. I just this has happened before, so I wouldn't have my feelings hurt if they had somebody here at least pushing him in practice.
No, I wouldn't be surprised by that. I wouldn't be against that. I just think based on what I heard from Ed this week, they're going to give him another shot.
Fair.
That's what I'm believing. And to Shaggy and St. Albert, maybe listen to what I'm saying. I'm not defending Vincent Blanchard as a kicker. If you listen to the words I am saying, I am defending the situation of how practice wouldn't be the same as a game. I am not defending his missed kicks today. All you're doing is just ripping on all the negativity in this one. I don't know do you enjoy watching sports is one question I have to you, Shaggy and St. Albert. Or do you just like misery? Because it seems like that's all you're going on here. But the words I said when it came to the kicking is if I'm going to defend that for a second, which was the practice. All they have to do in practice is kick. Is that you could be perfect there. It's not the same as in the game. Listen.
I thought St. Albert people were generally happy people.
It must be a miserable life sometimes to do these things. What else are you doing on a Saturday night except to just be miserable? If this is making you that miserable in Shoggy and St. Albert, go to bed. I'll say that right now. It's midnight. I'd love to go to bed right now. Get some rest.
Should we look at some positives?
Let's look at some positives.
Maybe that'll cheer up some people out there.
Well, we got Walkin Campbell's cat.
What's that?
Walkin' Campbell's cat or something.
Okay.
RPK and Shaggy and St. Albert. They might need some positivity. What positivity would you like to bring them, Jay?
Well, the red zone. 2 of 3, 66% in the red zone. That's good. When they were in the red zone, they were quite successful. BC, on the other hand, was 2 of 4. Like I said earlier, they have a bye week coming up. That's a great time for them right now to regroup. Go over this film, see where you can be better, see where you went wrong. Special teams on the other, aside from the kicking. But punting was fantastic. Net punting average was 54.2. That's exceptional. Special teams, we talked about the return game by Arkell Smith. Also very good. So, that.
Well, here's another positive.
Those were things that stood out to me as positives for sure, but not enough, obviously.
If you're an opposing team going up against the Elks and it's third and short, you better bring your best because the Elks defense is gonna bring their best and they're gonna get stops. 2 third down stops today.
Yeah, that's big, no question.
That's something I don't think the Elks on both sides of the ball. That is something they've struggled on over the last number of years. To know that you can step up and actually, they did it 3 times because they did it at the goal line twice. But one of them was the stop for the turnover, and then they did it for another turnover on downs. There's a positive I will look at as well. VR Montenegro does text in. Defense ran ragged, O-line blocking not ideal, kicker still sucks, but post-game haiku.
Haiku?
I don't know if I read that properly, but that's what VR Montenegro had sent in there. We're not getting into poetry on the post-game show. There's not going to be a regular limerick like they do on the Reed Wilkins show with Jay Milne. But yeah, and even this the Trace situation is show me a good quarterback that does well with a bad offensive line in front of him.
I'm not ready to say that this O-line is rip them up and throw them out.
No, I will not say that at all.
Right?
They had a bad performance today.
They did.
That's what I will say, is they had a bad performance today, and that is going to then lead to just, we talk about the building of this team. It's in the trenches. It's those 2 lines. It starts at your O-line, and when your O-line isn't good enough, nothing's going to be good enough. It's just that simple.
Correct.
And now hopefully with the bye week, and if there's one spot, Brett Boyka, who is a game-time decision, which leads me to believe he was close to playing. In 2 weeks, he'll be ready to go. And then I'm expecting this offensive line to take a step forward because 3 guys on this offensive line were the best from, part of a great offensive line last year. And they go out and they bring in David Beard, who's one of the best centers. They bring Gregor McKellar from Toronto. I do think that this offensive line is better than what we saw today, by far. I am in no way, shape, or form saying you need to be changing this offensive line. But the offense is going to need to start right there. They need to be better. And if they're not, I don't care about anything else. This isn't going to go well. Because again, you put Nathan Rourke behind that old line tonight, he's not getting the victory.
Yep.
Maybe he puts up more points. Maybe he puts up more points, but he doesn't get the victory.
That is surprising to me to have that O-line look that suspect tonight. I don't feel as though this is going to be something Elks fans should get used to. Look, I know that there's a left tackle and a left guard and a center and a right guard and a right tackle, but that unit works as a unit. When you're missing, especially at a tackle position, that affects everything because everybody takes on more of a bigger role. And McKellar at right guard did not look that strong.
And can I add just one more thing on that too?
Yeah, absolutely.
The guy that's lining up on the other side of that right side of it is a guy named Matthew Betts.
Yeah, he was wreaking havoc.
Yeah. He's a good defensive lineman. That doesn't help the cause of that offensive line. That makes it a lot more difficult. That's where it's like you would have liked Brett Boyko to have been there tonight, healthy.
I mean, you look at the stats. Edmonton had 17 first downs. BC had 25. That's quite a gap. That is quite a gap to overcome. Net offense, Edmonton 248, BC 446. BC almost had twice the amount of offense as Edmonton tonight. I mean, right there, those two stats suggest that this actually should have been quite a bit of a different score in favor of BC. This should have been this score actually does Edmonton some favors, in my opinion. But yeah, I look, it's one game. It's game one. I know everybody, all Elks fans are leery about coming out and losing your first game, because that means the floodgates are going to open and this team's going to go 0-7 again. I can't say that they aren't. I can't say that they're going to, come out and shock everybody and surprise against Montreal. I don't know, but I am surprised by the areas of this team that let them down tonight. The D-line, the O-line were areas of significant, or so we thought, improvement in free agency. And it just didn't come through that those improvements went onto the field or showed up on the field tonight.
Just quickly, Phyllis, 31-14 isn't a blowout. They can be better, and they will be better. Work on defensive work, practice throws between Trey and his receivers. I could play Trey and or Kilam post game if you want.
Oh, take you choose. Let's hear from the coach.
Coach?
Yeah.
Okay, give me a second here on this one, because I'm not set up for this properly, but I have the audio. Okay, let's see if I'm got the audio working here. There we go.
Point out there today. It looked like the defense had a bit of an edge in the first half. In the second half, some adjustments made some difficulties.
Yeah, we gassed out a little bit too, I think, in the second half there. But really, it was all three phases. Long season. All three phases have things that they need to get better at, and we will.
Tell us about your impressions with Trey and some of his struggles this evening, and yet some of the good things that he did as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's still learning. He gets better every time he plays, and he has to play to get better. That's what people don't understand. He has to play. It's the only way. But you see some of the dynamic things that he can do. He will always have that, and defenses have to account for that. But we've got to iron out the functionality of our offense on a day-to-day.
How do you work through some of the difficulties with Blanchard in this one?
I mean, he's got to keep kicking too. That's his first real game.
Yeah.
That's his first real game, and I told him, I had Renee in his first year too, and it took him a little bit to get going, and it's always about the next kick. We need him. He's talented enough to do it. He's just got to commit himself to the process and be able to move on after each kick.
Talk about first games. It's your first game as a coach. What's that one like for you?
Well, it'd be a lot better if we won, but I was proud of the guys, the fight. I was proud of the fight there, but obviously our execution level has to get better in all three phases if we want to win.
What changed in the second half? You guys made some key stops in the first half. You get out of there with a halftime lead, and then Nathan seemed to be pretty comfortable in the second half.
Yeah, they had some answers definitely for our what we were doing. I'm going to have to look at the film before I give you anything solid. I do think fatigue played a little bit of a role. We've got to look at the way that we're conditioning ourselves and try to amp that up a little bit. But week one, lots to build on, lots to learn.
Other than the field goal kicker, your special teams, the rest of it was dominant. And you're the special teams coach. Is that something you can build on?
It definitely can. I mean, we took a kickoff return off the board, though. I mean, that one hurt it when in a key moment when we needed a spark. I was proud of those guys. We've got good players on our special teams, and we want to be a three-phase football team. And when our offense needs a little bit of a spark, we've got to be that for them, and we got to keep those plays on the board.
There were two drives, and you were talking about the defense. One was you guys make the game close when Trey has that crazy 18-second runaround play, and then they're able to drive down and score. And then there's also the 107-yard drive where Nathan used his legs. How difficult were those to swallow?
Yeah, that was hard. They're deflating. I mean, they're a good offense. Nathan's a really good player, but those are deflating when you're trying to, capture a little bit of momentum or maintain that momentum. But again, learning experiences. It's week one. It's a long season, and I expect us to bounce back.
Going into a bye week, do you still work on some of those things during a bye week, or do you let these guys get a bit of a break in the middle here?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to take a couple days for sure because we just got out of training camp, but there's lots of work to be done. So staff will be in there. We'll get off those guys. We'll bring them back on Saturday, which is a day earlier than we normally would, and then start preparing for next week.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
There's Mark Kilam, head coach of the Edmonton Elks, following the Elks loss to the BC Lions 31-14. 22-14. Any thoughts from that?
No, I mean it's echoing a lot of things that people have been chiming in on in the nasty chat, things that we have said, that the execution wasn't there. He said it himself. They didn't look polished on offense, and that was glaring. Definitely sounds like Vincent Blanchard is the guy, will remain to be the guy. I do like how he compared it to Rene Paredes in Calgary. He was there. Mark Kilam was there when Rene came in as a kicker. And, he didn't say it, but he alluded to that maybe he had some struggles early on as well, and they just stuck with it and stuck with the process.
He missed 10 kicks in his first season.
Okay.
Don't know when they came, but he missed 10 kicks.
Well, Blanchard's missed 3 in his first game.
Well, 2.
3.
Not extra points. Take away the extra points.
Well, that's even worse. Count as double. I mean, that's just unacceptable. But anyways, we could beat this to death. Looks like they're sticking with it. And, I mean, okay, do that. But you cannot commit to it. If this happens next game, if in Montreal he goes 1 for 3 or 1 for 4, I'm sorry. The process has got to end. This is just too deflating to a team. When you're expecting to get points out of a drive and you get nothing, it's just too deflating.
We're going to wrap up shortly here, but Travis does ask, concerned that he mentioned conditioning twice, that they got fatigued.
Yeah, I am. And thanks for bringing that up, Travis. I don't understand that. What do you mean about conditioning? Is
that they're giving it all in, like, with that aggressiveness? They're giving it all, and they're having, like, I'm going to use defensively here because the offense we can't say was fatigued. Defensively, that they just give it their all. They're running all over the place, and they don't have it to play that style of defense for a whole game. It's like the Florida Panthers in Game 1 against the Oilers. You saw they gave it all in the second period, and then they had nothing for the third period and most of overtime. Is that the issue here? Is that the style of play that they're wanting to play? They don't have it in them to play that way the entire game.
Well, geez, man, you got your first drive was 8 plays. Your third drive was 10 plays. Then you had another 7-play drive, 10-play drive, 7-play drive. That's too long. I don't care if you're marathon runners, you're going to be fatigued. And you look at the start of the second half, 7-play drive, 10-play drive, 7-play drive. Yeah, you're going to be fatigued, but I don't know if there was a thought of that they need to be in better shape because he did say it twice. So I don't know. I didn't see that for a reason of them not getting off the field. Usually if you're fatigued, you'll just take more penalties. So maybe that was a part of it. I'm not sure. The one that on Josiah Shackle on the punt return for a touchdown, that was a block in the back.
Yep.
I mean, there's no...
And I like the challenge.
Or a kickoff return for... Yeah.
You have nothing to lose.
You have nothing to lose at that point.
Maybe the command center gets some advice from the NHL and they call a weird play and you get it returned, but likely not. But what do you have to lose? It's a timeout. It's not like they're going to need that timeout late. I will say just final thoughts for me, and then we'll leave some final thoughts for you. I actually look at this and go, there's enough to build off of here. I don't see a lot of disaster here that I don't mind. Like I once again said going into the season, I could see an 0-3 start and then rattling it off after that. I like what I see here. I'm actually a little more confident about the Montreal game than I was going into tonight, actually. As weird as that is. I think this defense is
very weird.
I think this defense is good enough that
I do too.
They will
man.
not have. They will not have another game with second downs like that. They will not have another game where they're giving up 70+ second down conversions and 60+ on second and longs. That's not happening. Which means they are going to get the ball back. I expect an offensive line to be much more improved. I expect a running attack to be there a lot more, and I do expect Trey Ford is better than what we saw tonight. That overall, that to me equals a much more competitive game against the Montreal Elks.
Who are you, and what'd you do with the normal Matthew Iwanyk? I appreciate your optimism.
I looked at last year. I didn't like what I saw. And
look,
it was the season was what it was. This wasn't a blowout. They were in it. Things fell apart a little bit in the third quarter, but there are things to build off of. And over the course of an 18-game season, it's a long season. There are the stones to build off of. And, here's the other thing. Last year, you wanted to see Trey rebound after that Winnipeg loss against Winnipeg. Now we get to see Trey Ford rebound after a loss. What is it like? What does Trey Ford do after that loss? So I actually am very comfortable with where this team is heading into a bye week. And then when they come back, if there's one thing actually defensive, I'd like a little more pressure. Actually, I can't even say I'd like more pressure on the court, but they got there. Nathan Rourke's just damn good.
Yeah,
they did get there.
They did get there, but they needed the blitz package to get there. Whereas BC did not. So that's a difference. This was a 7-3 game at halftime, Matt.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what Coach Kilam's talking about with the fatigue thing. They scored 28 points in the third and fourth quarter, did BC. So maybe that's what he was alluding to, that they need to be in it for the long haul, but I don't blame them for being tired on defense. Yeah, well, all phases need to execute better. That's a simple,
but that's coachable.
Yeah, I think it is, Matt. I think it is. I think that let's say the O-line. I honestly think getting Brett Boyko back remedies a lot of the issues that ailed them tonight. And then that opens up a little bit more of the door for Trey Ford to be comfortable in the pocket. He was not comfortable in the pocket. But then again, they didn't push the ball downfield, nor, and there were times they could have taken shots. But see how everything leads to another, right? If you're not getting
errors.
Yeah, compounding errors. If you're not getting the protection up front, you're not allowing Trey to get comfortable. You're not allowing the run game to set up, although they could have stuck to the run game a little bit more.
Here's what I will say about where my confidence comes. In years past, watching this opening loss that I saw for the Edmonton Elks lose, I would sit there and say there's a lot of players that they're just not talented in certain areas. Tonight, I don't sit there saying the Elks aren't talented in certain areas.
That's a good point.
They're just didn't execute. And that's a huge difference, and that's coachable. They could get there throughout this season. This isn't one where I'm looking at Chris Jones of years past or Ed Hervey this year going, man, you need to go find this, and this throughout the season because they're not there. The players are there. That's why I believe in this team, I think, after this game is I see players that can play. It's just a matter of now getting them to level of executing.
Tommy says excellent use of compounding errors.
I only say that because Tommy's the one that keeps pointing that out, and it's such a great point from Cass, and Tommy keeps bringing those ones up. So thank you, Tommy, for constantly bringing that up on post-game shows because it is a great term to use.
In this, I guess, instance, it is quite literal. Compounding errors is the right term to use to describe this game. My one last final point is just to aim a little bit right. Just shift your aim point right. Maybe things will work out for you, Vincent.
Every guy has to deal with that in a way, some way, shape, or form. The Edmonton Elks, they're on a bye week, which means they are back week 3, June 19th. It's the Edmonton Elks home opener. They will take it on the Montreal Alouettes at 7 o'clock. The Green and Gold kickoff show that day will get going at 6 o'clock. Coming up on Edmonton Sports Talk at 8 a.m. this morning. Because it is Sunday, 8 a.m., VIP Golf Show, Murray McCourt, Curtis Stock. They got Bob Weeks as it is the final day of the RBC Canadian Open. And then Monday, we do it all again here. It is game day for Game 3, Oilers and Panthers, as that series shifts to Florida.
What a game last night.
It will all start with, or 2 nights ago.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
The Nielsen Show, Dusty back. You're on with the Reed Wilkins Show as well.
You know it.
I will be on with the Hangout. We will talk with you then. Thank you to everyone for tuning into the Green and Gold kickoff show. The Edmonton Elks, they start their season 0-1, falling 31-14 to the BC Lions. Like I said, they are back up June 19th at Commonwealth Stadium. Thanks to everyone once again for tuning into Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton sports. On behalf of Jay, I'm Matt. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy your Sunday. We'll chat with you on Monday.